Hello and welcome to Jesus for Asia Now. I'm Natalie Wood, and today I have a very special guest with me. I'd like to welcome Tim Maddocks from Cambodia. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Glad you could be here.
It's good to be here.
So there's a lot going on in your project. Could you share with us what you're doing?
Well, we have two schools. One is K-12, one is a primary school.
Okay.
We have a boarding institution with this school with 130 kids. We have an orphanage, which now only has 20 kids. We have an old people's home with 6 elderly ladies. We have a media ministry, which has 10 YouTube channels, and we put out media in the Khmer language. We have a butterfly garden for tourists called Butterfly Paradise, and we have a plant nursery where we sell tropical plants. We also manage and develop a campground for the Cambodia Adventist Mission, and we're working toward having a lifestyle center.
Okay, so for all of these things, you must have a huge amount of staff, right?
I have about 65 staff.
Okay.
I'm not actually sure how many it is, but at last count it was 65.
So there's a lot going on in your ministry.
Yes.
So can you share with us how you got started? Because you have such a diverse, range of things that are being done. Can you share how you got started?
So I was working with ADRA, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Cambodia. We were based in Siem Reap City, but we were working in the countryside with farmers, helping them improve their rice yields.
Okay.
When we arrived, we realized that while God had sent us there, it seemed like to help farmers improve their rice yields, the real reason was to start a church, because there were to our knowledge, no Christians in the whole province of Siem Reap.
Okay.
And so we're doing ADRA work, development work, church planting. And my wife, Wendy, was raising our boys and teaching English classes to the people from the local community. And I was having my devotional time, and it's like I heard God audibly speaking to me. And he told me, I want you to work for me full time. And I understood that meant no longer having a salary.
Okay.
He said, I want you to train local Cambodian people to be church planters. And for me, was an agriculturalist, biology teacher. I had no theological training. And then the next shock was, I want you to buy land in the countryside. The security in the countryside was still not good back then in 1995.
Why is that? Why was the security not good?
Cambodia's had nearly 50 years of war, and so back then the Khmer Rouge was still a fighting force and still disrupting life in Siem Reap province where we were living. Every household had a AK-47 or an M16 rifle to protect themselves. Wow. And so God is saying, I want you to go out, take your family, your 2 small boys out and live in the countryside. So that's a shock. And then the next shock was, he said, I want you to live like the people in the community that you will live in. And he showed me which community he wanted me to live in, and I knew that community. And so basically he's saying, I want you to go and live in a thatched house, no electricity, no running water.
No vehicle.
No vehicle. And so this is a shock, to take my family into that kind of lifestyle when we've been living in a nice, fairly Western-style brick house with a nice kitchen and Western toilet.
And the kitchen showers. Was going to be?
The kitchen was going to be outside on the ground. So that was going to be tough on my wife.
Yeah.
And then the next shock came was, he said, I want you to invest all of your savings into this project. And we had no real physical assets, but we had about $20,000 in savings in the bank. Okay. And so God's saying, I want you to take all of that, invest that in the project. And the final shock was, I don't want you to ask anybody for money.
So did he lead you up to this, like step by step, or was this all of a sudden all new ideas?
This was one morning's devotion. He laid it all out.
All new ideas.
Yeah. At that time, we were looking at continuing to work with ADRA in Siem Reap on a new project, focusing more on vegetable production. We'd been focused on rice production, but God turned all that around. He said, plant another church in the community where you live.
Okay.
So we recruited from Siem Reap province for our first training program, and we had 22 students. Holy Spirit inspired us as to how to write the curriculum, how to teach it. At the end of that, we sent those young people and families out to start churches in Siem Reap province. After that, the pastors around the country began to pay attention and decided to send people to us. So all up, we did 12 of these training programs over a 10-year period.
And then what was the next thing that God brought?
Medical ministry started.
Okay.
So people from the community began asking Wendy, my wife, if she could help them with some of their medical issues. And so she began doing what she could. That quickly grew into a outpatient and inpatient bush hospital, one small wooden building. And she was seeing like 20 to 30 patients a day. And then she added to her skills child delivery.
Okay, midwifery. Wow.
And she delivered about 60 babies. Over a 4-year period when we ran the clinic, we saw about 6,000 people.
And then what came next?
We were getting requests from the poorest of the poor in our community to have a school. So one of the graduates from our first training, we appointed her as teacher. Now she had grade 2 level education. She was literate in the Khmer language. And so we started school on a veranda with a blackboard, and I think it was like 22 students sitting on the floor. Well, that grew and grew and grew until we got to K-12 bilingual school with currently 230 students.
So that's the one you were saying is now a boarding school also?
Yes.
Okay, and why did it become a boarding school?
Church planters, these people we're sending out, they wanted to send their kids to our school. And so initially we started taking their children, and then they started asking if other church members' children could come. And it was a little bit hard because we were living by faith. We weren't asking people for money. These parents weren't able to pay for their kids to be at our school. I had 9 parents wanting to send their kids to the school. And as boarding students. And so I said, well, I have no money. You have no money. Go away and pray. I will pray. And on a certain date, you come back and see me. And so I'm praying. I guess they were praying. And when that date arrived, I had no answer. So I'm talking to...
Sometimes God does that, right?
Yeah. So I'm talking to God about it, and before they arrive. And he says, they're my children, I'll pay. And so ever since that, I've understood that is God's plan for at least our school. So when it comes to the boarding costs, the food, etc., we feed them 3 meals a day. The accommodation costs, the cost for the staff to take care of them, that's on God's bill. So we ask them to pay school fees, but we subsidize it, sometimes to 0, depending on the family's situation.
Yeah.
So currently we have 130 boarding students from Seventh-day Adventist homes from many different provinces in the country.
So God continued to challenge your faith.
Yes, because as the school grew, we needed buildings. And the first school building we built was 5 classrooms. And we had, I think it was $4,500 to keep the ministry running in the school building. But God was teaching me work by faith, so we started the building, and I thought we'd just put in the reinforced concrete columns and beams and put the roof on. But as we went along, God spoke to me one day as I was walking by the school talking to him about it, and he said, finish it. And so I went to the builder and I said, finish it, knowing that I didn't have the money. And we finished it, and we didn't owe any money. God provided.
So after the school, then what came next?
Orphanage.
Okay.
When Wendy was running the clinic, she was having ladies who had full-blown AIDS come and die at our clinic because their families didn't want to take care of them because of fear. And it was at that point we realized there are kids being orphaned because of AIDS, and they are being basically rejected by their extended family. And these kids need a place where they can be loved and cared for.
Yeah.
At that time, there was a NGO-run children's hospital that started providing care for HIV-positive kids as well.
Okay.
By this time, I'm district pastor, so I'm overseeing, I think it was 26 churches in 3 provinces.
Oh,
Running an orphanage seemed like an impossibility. A family came along, said, yes, we will do it. And at the same time, we got a donation of I think it was about $50,000. So we had money that we could build the buildings with. We started running the permit for the orphanage with the government. And then the family pulled out. And we were left with the orphanage. But we're thankful. It's been a huge blessing to be able to work with the kids in the orphanage.
do you think that was God's plan all along?
I think it was. We were just being stubborn. We were just saying we got too much to do.
So you think he distracted you for a minute with the other people and then got you started and then...
Tricked us. Knowing that the blessing would be ours. So we set up the orphanage on a family basis, so husband and wife taking care of up to 16 kids. And that's a
big family.
It's a big family. They were big houses. But we didn't have to manage the kids on a daily basis.
Right.
And that worked really well.
It wasn't like a giant dorm with all these kids and one dean or 2 deans. It was a lot more personal.
Yeah, the needs of the kids could be met much better that way.
Yeah. What was the maximum number of orphans you had at one time? And then what's happening with the orphanage now?
Okay, so the orphanage, it grew really fast.
I can imagine.
So we're just adding houses, and we got up to 196 kids in 11 families.
Wow.
And so we're paying the carers, we're feeding the kids, and we're living by faith. God is providing. Nobody ever goes hungry. We're not soliciting funds from anybody. We're just trusting that God's going to provide.
So after the orphanage, what came next?
After the orphanage came the media work.
Okay, so how did that come about?
Your husband. Yeah, so John was coming to visit us from time to time and sent a student to do a documentary with us. And so my older son Caleb and I were watching this guy filming and editing, and it's like, we can do that too.
Yeah.
And so working with John over time, we began to put the pieces into place to make the vision come true. And so the first thing we did was to put computers into the school and introduce computing as a subject into the school to help the students get the technical knowledge with using computers that would be needed later for editing. We put photography as a subject.
Okay.
And then in 2009, we started building the studio. In 2010, we opened it with 3 young men who I had taught, and I didn't know much about television production, but I taught them from some modules I downloaded from the internet, and they started working on programming in the Khmer language with the instructions. When you don't know how to do something, go onto YouTube and learn, and then teach. So that's what's been happening since 2010. Today we have 11 people working full-time in the studio. And as I said earlier, we have 10 YouTube channels. We do a live broadcast from our church every Sabbath.
It's all in the same language, so why 10 channels?
We have a cooking channel, we have a health channel, we have a children's channel, we have a music channel. So we have different channels.
So all different channels for different types of... Do you have one that kind of shows things from all the different channels?
Yes, we have our main channel.
Okay.
So it's called Sankum TV.
I know there's stories behind how these things were built. You want to share with us the story of the media center, your studio, how that came to be?
So yeah, I've mentioned we live by faith, and often we're living what we call manna months.
Okay.
When money's coming in just enough, basically, for the week, for the day. There's not a lot extra. So building a studio, which cost about $70,000, was quite a big project. And it's hard to know, when do you start? Many people wait until they have all the funds to start. And for us, we've learned that we start when God says start. And for me, when God says start, there's usually a donation toward that particular project, an unsolicited donation.
Okay.
So my son Caleb was in Australia studying, and he sent us a donation of $200. And he said, Dad, this is for the studio. So this is the sign. It took us 15 months to finish, and it was all paid for. And within a few months, we had $60,000 worth of equipment in the studio, and we didn't ask anybody for money. God made it happen. So God's waiting for us to step out in faith and trust Him. I see myself as the foreman or manager, and God is the owner of the project, therefore He's paying. So my job is to make sure the work is happening. His job is to make sure the funds are there. And there was a time in the construction of the studio building when I was a little concerned because the main studio area out the back, it had grass growing in it. So we had the walls.
It had been a while.
We didn't have a concrete floor yet. There was no roof. So one evening I'm sitting out in the grass in this big studio room talking to God. The moon's shining and sort of saying, well, what's wrong?
What's the plan? Yeah, what's going on?
And God didn't answer me, but He gave me peace. And when the time was right, God had some things He wanted to do with some students from Australia. And so they wanted to come out and do a project, and they had about $10,000. That was good for pouring the concrete and painting the walls on the outside. The project began to move again, and then the miracles began to happen. And God used the project to teach some of those kids about working together as a team, about His power to provide. And as they are working, I was handed $10,000 in cash from somebody else to put the roof on. And so they got to see the miracles happening. So I think God delayed the building specifically for those teenagers to teach them some things about Him and His power to provide and how they can work together to make a difference for others. And so then the project just carried on and got finished.
And it was finished.
And
wow, praise the Lord. Yeah, it's neat to think, sometimes we think He's just delaying, he's ignoring the need or something, but He's always got a reason.
Yes.
And it's neat to be able to see. Sometimes we don't see the reasons why He's delayed. We just have to trust Him that someday in heaven we'll know.
Yeah.
But you got to see it at least that time.
Another miracle story, we're building one of these orphanage duplexes. We built them like one at a time as they were needed. And we put out a contract for putting the roof on the building and the security bars on the windows, the doors, and it was about $8,000. I had total $4,500. And so the agreement with the contractor was we pay him half, and then at the end of the project we pay the rest. So I gave him the money. I actually gave him $4,500, trusting God will provide our food needs. And he's working along slowly on the project. And the day he got finished was the day that $6,000 came into our bank account. We didn't know it was coming. I'm just praying, God, we have this agreement with the builder, you need to provide. And so this money arrives, and I paid him in full that afternoon. And he never knew that I didn't have the money till that morning. And I discovered later that it took 3 months for that money to get to us.
Wow.
But God arranged for it to arrive on the very day it was needed to teach me a lesson that I can trust Him.
Wow. God is so good, isn't He?
Yes.
Okay, but we're not to the end of the story yet. So what was next? What came next?
Campground.
Okay.
So one day we were doing a Pathfinder camp out near one of our country churches next to a national park and a mountain. And I'm sitting on the road looking at the mountain and the national park. And again, I heard God. And He said, the land you're looking at, I want you to buy that for a campground. And the land you're sitting on, I want you to buy that for a health resort or a lifestyle center. And these two projects were not on my radar. But again,
He seems to do that to you frequently.
Yeah.
Not on the radar.
And it was very clear. I had no doubt this was what God wanted. It took 3, maybe 4 miracles to make that happen.
Wow.
And God pulled off each one of those miracles, including providing money. And we were able to buy these 2 plots of land, and we started developing the campground.
Okay.
Then in 2014, a friend said, "Why don't you start a butterfly garden?" Now, I've been praying to God for an industry that would generate income to help our ministry. And this friend suggests this industry. Siem Reap, where we live, is a tourist town. And at that time, we had about 4 million visitors a year to the town.
4 million.
So it sounded like a good idea. I wasn't convinced because, again, I'm busy. There's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
We're living from day to day as God provides. And tourism wasn't, and business weren't my areas. I still declare business is not my area. But
God always challenges you, though.
He challenges us. And so I argued with God about this project. And then it's like, well, if we're going to do it, it has to be representative of God because it's for His glory.
So you knew that God had spoken to you through your friend.
That friend, and then 2 other businessmen friends from Southeast Asia. I met with them for a meal in the Siem Reap town, and they're talking about their business projects that they're working on to spread the gospel. And then as I'm driving home, it's like God is really pushing me. I drove home really slow that day.
You had to have an argument in the car.
By the time I got home, it's like, well, I think God wants me to do this, but I've figured out what I thought it was going to cost to try to tell God it's too expensive. So $400,000. But He said, yes, we do it. And so the next thing I did is I took a big blank piece of paper, big sheet of paper, and I put it on my kitchen table, and I said to God in the morning, I want to see your plan.
Well, that's kind of brave.
And
Did He reward you with the plans?
I got up in the morning and the paper was blank.
Uh-oh.
And it's like, I really wanted you to design this. It's for your glory. And His response was, I gave you a brain, I'll help you.
So He's always willing to help us when He gives us anything that seems outside of the realm of something we can achieve.
You know, something like that, usually they hire in architects with expertise. I was the drainage engineer, the irrigation engineer, the electrical engineer,
The plumbing
engineer, the structural engineer.
Yeah.
And the architect, and none of those were actually in my skill set. But God enabled me to do it, and we hired local builders to actually make it a reality.
So what are the structures inside Butterfly Paradise? What is involved with that?
It's a large cage,
Okay.
one of the largest butterfly cages in the world. It has a cinema, which is behind a cave-like mountain.
So what do you show in there?
We show videos that highlight the design in nature and point to God as creator.
Okay.
So this is our main, I guess you'd call, evangelistic part of the Butterfly Garden. People escape the heat into the air-conditioned cinema and be introduced to the creator God, if they don't already know Him. And then we have a vegan restaurant, which is beautiful and has large glass windows looking into the butterfly garden, so you can enjoy your food in air-conditioned comfort.
But also enjoy the beauty of nature.
Enjoy the beauty of nature. We have a caterpillar laboratory where we raise caterpillars. So we breed our own butterflies, raise the caterpillars. And each kind of butterfly has, their caterpillar eats different kinds of leaves. So we have to grow the plants so that we have leaves to feed the caterpillars. So it's a fairly big operation. I think I have 11 people there working at the moment.
Okay. So you also mentioned a nursery. So how does the nursery factor into Butterfly Paradise and vice versa?
So the nursery began as a student project just to give the students some experience in growing plants. It was just a very small operation next to my house. And then once we started with the Butterfly Garden project, it's like we need a lot of plants and a lot of beautiful different kinds of plants so that it's sort of like a botanical garden. Mm-hmm. And it grew and it grew and it grew until when we came to plan out Butterfly Paradise, we basically had all the plants we needed. We didn't have to buy in very many at all. That saved money.
Yeah.
We had lots of plants. We had the skill to grow them. And so we built an area for propagating plants, a new area, and a sales area for the plants. So today, my guess is we have probably 10,000 plants for sale at any one time.
Okay, so you're talking about you ask God for money only.
Mm-hmm.
God told you not to ask anybody for money, but God always provides.
God impresses people to give. Mm-hmm. And over the years, He's brought many people to come and visit. And so they're seeing what we're doing. And many of them go away and decide they want to financially support the work. And there are some people that He's impressed to make larger donations. And Jesus for Asia is a nice channel for us to channel donations from the US to us. But again, it's not asking people for money. It's just God helping people to realize that they can make a difference through giving. We've been living by faith now for 29 and a half years, and we've never gone without, and the people we care for have never gone without. God has always been good to provide. Sometimes it's looked impossible. In fact, for as many months as I can remember now, pretty much it's like, there's no way we can do another month. But I don't actually think that way, because I know God is in control. And after 29 and a half years, God has never failed us. I don't stress about it at all. From a human perspective, we should have been bankrupt a long time ago. But we're not thinking from a human perspective. This is God's work. He wants to finish it. He's providing through His people around the world. And we've been very blessed to see how God works, to have that faith walk with Him.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us today, Tim.
Thank you for the opportunity. God bless. Jesus for Asia.
Thank you. And I would like to invite you to pray for Tim and his wife, Wendy, and the beautiful variety of ministry God has them doing there in Cambodia. And if you would like to get involved, you can contact us at Jesus for Asia, P.O. Box 1221, Collegedale, Tennessee, 37315. Call us at 423-413-7321 or visit our website at jesusforasia.org. May God richly bless you until we see you next time on Jesus for Asia Now.